Installing a dimmer switch inside a metal box does not increase its dimmable wattage. The dimmable wattage of a dimmer switch is determined by several factors, including firstly, the type of dimmer switch. Different types of dimmer switches such as triac, MLV, and ELV have different wattage capacities. Secondly, the design of the dimmer switch. The internal components and circuitry of the dimmer switch affect its wattage capacity. Thirdly, the type of load. The type of load connected to the dimmer switch, such as incandescent, CFL, or LED, affects its wattage capacity. The metal box surrounding the dimmer switch does not directly affect the dimmable wattage. However, it can affect the following factors that may indirectly impact the wattage, namely heat dissipation. The metal box can provide a heat sink for the dimmer switch, allowing it to dissipate heat more efficiently. This can improve the overall performance and lifespan of the dimmer switch. Also, grounding. The metal box provides a grounding path for the dimmer switch, which is important for safety and proper operation. Overall, the metal box does not significantly impact the dimmable wattage of the dimmer switch. The wattage capacity of the dimmer switch is determined by the factors mentioned earlier. Let's elaborate further on the types of dimmer switches mentioned. Triac dimmers are commonly used for incandescent and some LED lighting. They work by chopping off portions of the alternating current sine wave, reducing the average power delivered to the lamp. These are generally the most cost-effective option, but they can sometimes cause buzzing or flickering with certain LED bulbs. MLV dimmers, or magnetic low-voltage dimmers, are designed for use with magnetic transformers powering low-voltage lighting like halogen bulbs. They are also a type of triac dimmer, but they are specifically designed to handle the inductive load presented by the transformer. Using a standard triac dimmer with a magnetic transformer can lead to overheating and damage. ELV dimmers, or electronic low-voltage dimmers, are used with electronic transformers powering low-voltage lighting. They are more sophisticated than triac dimmers and offer smoother dimming performance, especially with LED. ELV dimmers are designed to handle the capacitive load presented by electronic transformers. Using the wrong type of dimmer with an electronic transformer can also lead to problems. The design of the dimmer switch itself plays a crucial role in determining its wattage capacity. The internal components such as the triac or MOSFET, the heat sink, and the circuitry are all designed to handle a specific amount of current and voltage. A higher quality dimmer switch will typically have more robust components and a larger heatsink, allowing it to handle a higher wattage load. The type of load connected to the dimmer switch significantly impacts its wattage capacity. Incandescent bulbs are purely resistive loads, making them relatively easy to dim. CFLs and LEDs, on the other hand, are more complex loads. They contain electronic components that can be sensitive to the chopped waveforms produced by dimmer switches. Some CFL and LED are not dimmable at all, and using them with a dimmer switch can damage the bulb of the dimmer. Even dimmable CFL and LED may have a limited dimming range or exhibit flickering or buzzing. It is crucial to check the compatibility of the bulb and the dimmer switch before installation. Regarding heat dissipation, dimmer switches generate heat as they chop off portions of the AC waveform. This heat needs to be dissipated to prevent the dimmer switch from overheating and failing. The metal box surrounding the dimmer switch can act as a heat sink, drawing heat away from the dimmer switch and dissipating it into the surrounding air. A larger metal box will provide better heat dissipation than a smaller one. Some dimmer switches are specifically designed to be used with metal boxes, and they have features to improve heat transfer. Grounding is another important safety consideration. The metal box should be properly grounded to provide a path for fault current to flow back to the electrical panel in the event of a short circuit. This helps to protect people from electric shock. The dimmer switch should also be properly grounded, either through the metal box or through a separate grounding wire. In summary, while the metal box doesn't directly increase the dimmable wattage of a dimmer switch, it plays an important role in heat dissipation and grounding, both of which are important for the safe and reliable operation of the dimmer switch. The dimmable wattage is primarily determined by the type of dimmer switch, its internal design, and the type of load connected to it. To further elaborate on the selection of a dimmer switch, it is essential to consider the total wattage of the lighting load. For example, if you have 660-watt incandescent bulbs, the total wattage is 360 watts. You would need to select a dimmer switch that is rated for at least 360 watts. It is generally recommended to choose a dimmer switch with a slightly higher wattage rating than the total load to provide a safety margin. This will help to prevent the dimmer switch from overheating and failing. When using LED or CFL, it is important to check the compatibility of the bulb and the dimmer switch. Many LED and CFL bulbs are not dimmable, and using them with a dimmer switch can damage the bulb or the dimmer. Even dimmable LED and CFL bulbs may have a limited dimming range or exhibit flickering or buzzing. It is recommended to use a dimmer switch that is specifically designed for use with LED or CFL. These dimmer switches typically have a wider dimming range and provide smoother dimming performance. It is also important to consider the type of wiring in your home. If you have older wiring, it may not be able to handle the current draw of a dimmer switch. In this case, you may need to upgrade your wiring before installing a dimmer switch. It is always recommended to consult with a qualified electrician before making any electrical modifications to your home. They can help you to select the correct dimmer switch for your needs and ensure that it is installed safely and correctly. When installing a dimmer switch in a metal box, it is important to ensure that the box is properly grounded. This will help to protect you from electric shock. The grounding wire should be connected to the grounding screw in the metal box. The dimmer switch should also be properly grounded, either through the metal box or through a separate grounding wire. It is also important to ensure that the dimmer switch is properly rated for the voltage and current in your home. In the United States, most homes have a voltage of 120 volts. The dimmer switch should be rated for at least 120 volts. The current rating of the dimmer switch should be high enough to handle the total load connected to it. If you are not sure what the voltage and current ratings are in your home, you should consult with a qualified electrician. When installing a dimmer switch, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. This will help to ensure that the dimmer switch is installed safely and correctly. Before starting any electrical work, it is important to turn off the power at the circuit breaker. This will help to prevent you from electric shock. It is also important to use the correct tools for the job. Using the wrong tools can damage the dimmer switch or the wiring in your home. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, you should consult with a qualified electrician. They can install the dimmer switch for you and ensure that it is done safely and correctly. To summarize the critical points, consider firstly the type of dimmer switch, for example TRIC, MLV, or ELV, and its compatibility with the lighting loads such as incandescent, LED, or CFL. Secondly, always ensure the dimmer switch wattage rating meets or exceeds the total wattage of the connected lights. Thirdly, grounding the metal box and the dimmer switch is crucial for safety. Fourthly, the metal box aids in heat dissipation, improving the dimmer's lifespan, but it doesn't increase its dimming capacity. Fifthly, always follow the manufacturer's instructions and local electrical codes during installation. Lastly, when in doubt, consult a qualified electrician. Understanding the intricacies of dimmer switches and their interaction with metal boxes ensures not only proper functionality but also the safety of your electrical system. Always prioritize safety and consult with professionals when needed. In addition to the factors already discussed, it's beneficial to delve deeper into the technical aspects of heat dissipation within a metal box enclosure. The effectiveness of heat dissipation depends on several variables, including the size and material of the metal box, the ambient temperature, and the ventilation available. Metal boxes typically used for electrical installations are made of steel or aluminum. Aluminum has better thermal conductivity than steel, meaning it can transfer heat away from the dimmer switch more efficiently. However, steel boxes are more common due to their low cost and greater structural strength. The size of the metal box also plays a significant role. A larger box has a greater surface area, which allows it to dissipate heat more readily. The ambient temperature surrounding the metal box affects its ability to dissipate heat. If the ambient temperature is high, the temperature difference between the dimmer switch and the surrounding air will be smaller, reducing the rate of heat transfer. Ventilation is another important factor. If the metal box is enclosed in a confined space with poor ventilation, heat will build up inside the box, reducing its ability to dissipate heat from the dimmer switch. In some cases, it may be necessary to provide additional ventilation to the metal box, such as by drilling holes in the box or by using a fan to circulate air around the box. The design of the dimmer switch itself also affects its heat dissipation characteristics. Some dimmer switches have integrated heat sinks that are designed to transfer heat away from the internal components. These heat sinks may be made of aluminum or copper, and they are often thin to increase their surface area. The way the dimmer switch is mounted in a metal box can also affect its heat dissipation. If the dimmer switch is mounted flush against the metal box, heat can be transferred directly from the dimmer switch to the box. However, if the dimmer switch is mounted on standoffs or with an air gap between the dimmer switch and the box, heat transfer will be reduced. In addition to heat dissipation, grounding is a critical safety consideration when installing a dimmer switch in a metal box. Grounding provides a low impedance path for fault current to flow back to the electrical panel in the event of a short circuit. This helps to protect people from electric shock. The metal box must be properly grounded to be effective. This is typically done by connecting a grounding wire to the grounding screw in the metal box. The grounding wire should be connected to the grounding system in your home. The dimmer switch must also be properly grounded. This can be done by connecting a grounding wire to the grounding screw in the dimmer switch. Alternatively, some dimmer switches are designed to be grounded through the metal box. In this case, the dimmer switch must be installed in a metal box that is properly grounded. It is important to note that some older homes may not have a proper grounding system. In this case, it is recommended to consult with a qualified electrician to have a grounding system installed. Without a proper grounding system, the risk of electric shock is significantly increased. When selecting a dimmer switch, it is important to consider the type of lighting load that will be connected to it. Incandescent bulbs are relatively simple resistive loads, and they can be dimmed with most types of dimmer switches. However, LED and CFL bulbs are more complex electronic loads, and they may not be compatible with all types of dimmer switches. Some LED and CFL bulbs are specifically designed to be dimmable, and they will work with a wide range of dimmer switches. However, other LED and CFL bulbs are not dimmable, and they should not be used with a dimmer switch. Using a non-dimmable LED or CFL bulb with a dimmer switch can damage the bulb or the dimmer switch. When selecting a dimmer switch for use with LED or CFL bulbs, it is important to check the compatibility of the bulb and the dimmer switch. The dimmer switch manufacturer's website or product documentation will typically list the types of bulbs that are compatible with the dimmer switch. It is also important to consider the wattage of the lighting load. The dimmer switch must be rated for at least the total wattage of the bulbs that will be connected to it. Using a dimmer switch that is not rated for the wattage of the load can cause the dimmer switch to overheat and fail. The NEC, or National Electrical Code, provides guidelines for the safe installation of electrical equipment, including dimmer switches. NEC Section 404. 2C covers the requirements for dimmer switches. This section specifies the types of enclosures that are permitted for dimmer switches, the grounding requirements, and the wiring methods that must be used. It is important to consult the NEC and any local electrical codes before installing a dimmer switch. These codes provide detailed information on the safe and proper installation of electrical equipment. Violating these codes can result in fines or other penalties. In addition to the NEC, there are also industry standards that provide guidance on the performance and safety of dimmer switches. These standards are developed by organizations such as UL, or Underwriters Laboratories. UL standards specify the testing and certification requirements for dimmer switches. Dimmer switches that are UL listed have been tested and certified to meet the requirements of these standards. When selecting a dimmer switch, it is recommended to choose one that is UL listed. This provides assurance that the dimmer switch has been tested and certified to meet industry safety standards. The UL listing mark is typically found on the dimmer switch packaging or on the dimmer switch itself. It is important to understand the different types of dimmer switches available and their suitability for various lighting loads. Track dimmers are a common type of dimmer switch used for incandescent and halogen lighting. They work by controlling the flow of current to the bulb using a triac, which is a type of semiconductor device. Triac dimmers are relatively inexpensive and easy to install. However, they can sometimes cause flickering or buzzing with LED and CFL bulbs. ELV dimmers are designed for use with electronic low-voltage lighting, such as LED and CFL bulbs. They use a different type of circuitry than triac dimmers, which allows them to provide smoother and more stable dimming performance with these types of bulbs. ELV dimmers are designed for use with magnetic low-voltage lighting, such as halogen bulbs powered by magnetic transformers. They are similar to triac dimmers, but they are designed to handle the inductive load of the magnetic transformer. Digital dimmers are a more advanced type of dimmer switch that use a microprocessor to control the dimming function. They offer a wider range of features and options than traditional dimmer switches, such as programmable dimming levels and remote control capabilities. When installing a dimmer switch, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. The instructions will provide detailed information on the wiring connections, mounting procedures, and other important information. It is also important to ensure that the dimmer switch is properly sized for the lighting load. The dimmer switch should be rated for at least the total wattage of the bulbs that will be connected to it. Using a dimmer switch that is not properly sized can cause the dimmer switch to overheat and fail. It is important to use the correct wiring methods when installing a dimmer switch. The wiring should be properly sized and insulated, and the connections should be secure. Loose or faulty wiring connections can cause the dimmer switch to malfunction or create a fire hazard. It is important to test the dimmer switch after it has been installed to ensure that it is working properly. The dimmer switch should dim the light smoothly and without flickering or buzzing. If the dimmer switch is not working properly, it is important to troubleshoot the problem and correct it before using the dimmer switch. It is important to maintain the dimmer switch on a regular basis to ensure that it continues to function properly. The dimmer switch should be kept clean and free of dust and debris. The wiring connections should be checked periodically to ensure that they are secure. If the dimmer switch is damaged, it should be replaced immediately. When working with electricity, it is important to take precautions to protect yourself from electric shock. Always turn off the power at the circuit breaker before working on any electrical wiring. Use insulated tools and wear rubber gloves and eye protection. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is best to consult with a qualified electrician. In conclusion, while a metal box provides grounding and contributes to heat dissipation, it does not inherently increase the dimmable wattage of a dimmer switch. The wattage capacity depends on factors such as the type of dimmer, its design, and the connected load. Always consider safety and adhere to electrical codes when installing or working with dimmer switches.